Hi everybody, it's Tom Lee here from In The Box. On this one-off dedicated episode, we're talking all about safeguarding and the up-and-coming Play Safe weekend, where we get to shine a spotlight on why safeguarding is crucial and remains ever so important for the game, right from the professional game down to the grassroots. On this Play Safe weekend, endorsed by the NSPCC, it's where the professional game, right through to you guys, the clubs and leagues and the beating heart of football, come together to really play our part to make sure that safeguarding remains a key focus for us all to make sure football remains safe, fun and enjoyable for all. We're about to listen to a conversation, a brave and honest conversation between Jamie, Gary and Ellie, survivors of non-recent sexual abuse in football. We encourage you to share this amongst your clubs, your leagues, but in particular your parents and carers, because we've got some really good advice at the end of it of how those people can go and get some awareness, training and education to make sure we play our part and keep the game safe.
My name is Jamie Cartwright. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse in football.
Hello, I'm Gary Cliff and I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse in football.
Yeah, nice to meet you both. My name's Ellie and I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse in football.
So back in 1992, I was playing football for a really good standard football team in Staffordshire, and unfortunately the club had a particularly quality coach. He was a good footballing coach. Unfortunately, he turned out to be a prolific paedophile. And for 2.5 years, I was sort of under that spell, being subjected to the psychological manipulation, and that inevitably turned into physical sexual abuse. It was a particularly difficult time for a 11, 12-year-old to be dealing with that. But it was the dream of being a professional footballer, and the pressure that surrounded me from my peers, my parents, coaches, and therefore I towed the line because that was the ticket to stardom, and it was pleasing everybody else, not just, at the detriment of my happiness, but it was, at the time, it was the decision that I made to continue with it because I thought it was going to keep everybody else happy. My auntie is a social worker, and she told my parents that the coach was showing all the signs of a paedophile. I mean,
people think it doesn't happen to them, no?
But my parents were under the spell. All the signs were there, to the extent that my auntie, who didn't even live in the area, was hearing what I was doing, going to his house, doing things like that. So she wasn't even pitch side, visibly there. She just went, this isn't right, and raised it. I think, talking about ringing to go and stay for the weekend, I was having to do exactly the same things. One time when I didn't call, he cut me from the team. Said, right, you don't come back. Yeah. My parents then got on the phone to say, hang on a minute, what have you done that for? Rather than go, why don't you want to go to his house? They went, hang on, he needs to get back in the team. And that just shows the level of manipulation, right, that it was all about, this was going to make me the professional footballer. My parents were in on that. They could not see this 13-year-old boy who didn't want to go to the star maker's house and was trying not to, but there was never a question, why don't you want to go?
Yeah, so I'm very similar, Jamie. So from the age of probably 11 to 15, I was at a professional club at Manchester City for all them years, going through the various age groups and teams from very junior football right through to youth team football at the club. Love the football, but unfortunately the sexual abuse that I suffered over that long period of time has left a massive hole in my life and has totally shaped me from that point, probably forever, for the rest of my life. Again, the coach, it was the football coach, who was very charismatic. Everyone loved him. My parents loved him. All the boys loved him. And I used to go virtually every weekend to stay with him. And I can see now, looking back, that I did change, and there were signs, I believe, but none of them were ever picked up or acted upon at that time, which was back in mid-80s. So it's a truly horrific thing that's happened with serious sexual assaults and violence against myself, and not only against myself. When it did eventually come out, the kind of ripple effect with my family has been appalling, and my parents obviously absolutely distraught and broken by what happened. At that time, there was no safeguarding in place. There was no welfare officers. The signs are all there now for, overnight stays. It's just, there's no need for it, but we did it and it wasn't questioned. Yeah. And there's a lot of parental pride of gets in the way of, you're going to be the big star and this guy's going to be the vehicle to take you there. So there's all that went on. The effect on me has been catastrophic in terms of illness, lots of mental health and medication that have been on for probably 35 years now, and I need it because of what happened. And you touched upon it, Jamie, about the shame and guilt and embarrassment is massive. The amazing thing is that us lads never spoke about it, did we, to each other? No. And we probably knew, we did know it was going on to each other's. Yeah. So that it can't be just me, it can't be just you. There's too many of us for it not to be a thing that we did not speak. Yeah. And it's only now as an adult looking back, you didn't have the words, you didn't have the vocabulary. No. You didn't really know what was going on. No. So you need adults to spot the signs, speak up, challenge. Yeah. And a massive thing now, which I hope has improved, is taking away opportunity. Yeah, that's a big when you analyse, we've probably analysed this in our heads loads and loads of times, haven't we, over many, many years. Yeah. And it's about taking away or reducing as much as possible opportunity for abuse to happen.
Okay, so my coach, it's got quite a different story, I think, in some ways, just because women's football in 1987 was very different from men's. I mean, it still is now, isn't it? I'm talking about a grassroots coach who came along at a time when the possibilities for me to continue playing football were really limited. Me and my sister joined the team. He was already a convicted sex offender. He assaulted us both, more than once, and there was a whole raft of manipulation of me, my family and the team, I think, involved in how he operated. Thanks to the bravery of you guys and everyone speaking up. Back when the helpline was set up, we did later find out he did go on to be convicted and imprisoned. Back in 1989, I wasn't the only victim in the team, and it came out at school. And there was a court case, but although there were 5 of us with allegations, he was found not guilty, and he went on to work in football and commit further offences before he was imprisoned 10 years later. one of the last conversations I had with my sister actually was about the day the not guilty verdict came back in 1990. So I was 13 years old. And when the adults came back and told us, I ran out the house and my sister found me later. I was in a Wendy house in the park doing solvents. And I know that I would not have been using substances if I'd still had football. But football was now tainted because the man who was going to help me get to play for, it was only Millwall Lionesses really, was the best option at that time, was there. So I'm wondering now, hearing you two talk, I feel like, I recognise dissociation, I recognise withdrawal. I think I did them all and had a lot of anger, and I became a real troubled teen who caused trouble at school. I was very good at home and lied a lot, but got in a lot of trouble at school and with my peer group. That anger, I think, didn't really have anywhere to go, so it went inwards, and I developed problems with substances. And I think sometimes some of the antisocial behaviour you see in young people is a cry for help. And I would not want those decades. Sometimes I think about them as lost decades because there's a lot of addiction in that as well. I wouldn't want anyone else to have that stolen from them.
I didn't revert into myself and show what people would deem to be the typical signs of a victim of abuse. Actually, I was so concerned about people knowing about it. I went the opposite way, and I lived in that 2.5 year period, and then after that, until I finally disclosed 25 years later, my whole life was built around having a front to hide that part of my life, because the embarrassment, the pain, everything that came with telling people what was happening or what had happened was just too great for me. And the way that I could protect myself from that would be to actually become more confident, more everything's fine, and have this complete front so that there was never an opportunity that anybody could point a finger at me and go, was he, is he, did that happen to him? And at the time, it was blatantly obvious that it would have happened to me. But at the time, the system just wasn't there to ask the right questions at the right time for me to discuss it as a 14-year-old. When I was interviewed by the police, and they basically said to me, as a 14-year-old lad, did he touch you? I said, if he had have done, I'd have punched him in the face. That was my exact reply. I can remember it clear as day, because I wanted to show them that absolutely nothing happened to me, because what would have, if it have outed me, the embarrassment and all the stuff that comes with it. So I was exactly in that position. I was asked the question once by a police officer, and that was my reply. But if my parent or my auntie or somebody had said, are you okay? Not the question, not the key, most difficult question to answer. If she'd have just said, are you okay going to that man's house? Maybe I'd have answered it in a different way.
You're crying out for somebody, an adult, to say, are you okay? What's going on? Where are you staying? Who's picking you up? Why are you staying there? Do you need to?
Yeah.
And it never happened. Never came, did it?
I mean, Jimmy Savile groomed the country from the telly, didn't he? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous when you look back on that now.
Yeah.
And then I think, my perpetrator, he charmed the parents. What chance did I have? What chance did I have,
Yeah, it is fair to say safeguarding has come on leaps and bounds since my time in the 80s, with the FA and all the county FAs. And I do believe the information is out there now in terms of welfare officers. And if it isn't, I'd urge all parents to find out who the welfare officer is, who they can report to, the process of flagging up a concern, and also to know that they might not have that evidence, they might not have that eyewitness evidence, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get that out. But a concern is you should be encouraged to report a concern and it be investigated, because we can't have children going through what we went through. But I'd hate that to continue.
As a society, we're so naive about this stuff, I think. There's probably so many occasions where people don't say anything because it's socially awkward or you're not entirely sure. And to change the culture, to make it safe, it has to be acceptable to say, I don't know, but maybe check it out. Do you know what I mean? That has to be okay, because the price of not doing that is too
great. It's too great not to refer or make a concern.
So it's awkward, socially awkward for a bit between adults. So what? Right? So a man has to deal with being investigated when he hasn't done anything wrong. He'll survive that. He might feel a bit upset for a while. It would hurt, wouldn't it, to have an accusation that wasn't true?
Yeah. But to do nothing.
Grow up and allow it and go with it and work with the police, clear your name and crack on, because you're doing it for the sake of all the ones that don't get picked up.
To not do it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
Just to refer it to the appropriate authorities and bodies to investigate as best as they can.
Yeah.
And I think, it's not the 80s, it's not the 90s right now. And like you say, the opportunity isn't the same as it was. It's still happening, and we all know that. And you might think you've got all your things together and everything's fine, and my son or daughter goes to this really reputable sports club or this or that and the other. And the reality is that you just don't know. You just don't know. And you've got no idea what it means and the people that are involved in that. And it seems like we just have this irrational trust of people in positions of power in those situations. It's almost like when we ask a question of a sports club to show us your safeguarding policy and things like that, that we're the ones that are upset in the apple cart. And actually we've got to flip that, right? It has to be normal. And if anything, it's the sports clubs that need to be projecting that onto us as parents to say, this is how we do what we do to keep your children safe. Your responsibility as a parent doesn't stop as in their welfare when they're there. You are still responsible for that. And therefore, what does that mean? It's on your watch, even though your child is going to somebody else's.
It's a good point. You're handing over the most precious thing in your life, aren't you? Your child.
Yeah.
And parents are quite happily
just
off you go without challenging or sticking the nose in and saying what's going on, what's the arrangements.
Exactly.
It's incredible, really.
And it's almost like if you were to throw your car keys to someone and say, have that for a week, you might be a bit reticent about that, right?
Yeah.
At least
you'll chuck your child.
But you'll throw your child, and it's like, at least the car can get fixed, but it's not as easy to fix a child, right? And
be inquisitive and ask questions.
Yeah.
And there's that hierarchy, isn't there, like of the best player or the knowledgeable coach or whatever. Don't question them, be grateful. No. Safety before glory. It's not glorious if you've won it, or, Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a healthy and safe environment, first and foremost. And football belongs to everyone, so parents have a responsibility to ensure that is a healthy, safe environment where their child can flourish. And the child needs to... I really like some of the rights-based stuff, ensuring that children know that they have a right to be safe and flourish and that it's their game. I never had that kind of understanding when I was a kid. And now, as a coach, I'm keen to tell my players that it's their game, they own it, it's on their terms. And if it's not working, you walk away.
Yeah. The main thing is enjoyment and safety.
Yeah.
All the other stuff, the bells and whistles come after that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And making it in the pro game.
Yeah.
It'd be worthless if you haven't got grounding in safety and well-being of that child.
And I think this is why the Play Safe initiative is essential, to give clubs certainly grassroots voluntary organisations, the ability to be able to utilise the initiative of Play Safe to give it to give us all the best chance to create a safe environment for kids and vulnerable adults to enjoy sport, ultimately, and football being at the heart of it, you know. The huge benefit we have nowadays is this wealth of knowledge that we now have. People are talking about it far more freely. We've been able to create courses like the Play Safe course. It takes 30, 40 minutes to get it done. Every parent should do it, because in my experience, if every parent had done it back in my day, I'm pretty confident I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you. So we have this real strong positive outcome from this situation, this horrific situation we've been in, where we've got now, because of this conversation we're willing to have, and a lot of people are willing to have it, we're able to put these fantastic courses together, the content that can educate parents, educate everybody that around football, to do our best and everyone's best to reduce the opportunity of this happening ever again.
And I think it also helps change the culture so that we can speak about it. And what that does is, even when the offenders get through, the child, it's easier or more likely maybe that the child can actually speak up.
Yeah.
But it's a cultural shift. This stuff happens, it's in sport. We need to be talking and thinking about it to keep safe.
Yeah.
It's a force for good. It's an absolutely essential piece of kit to just view it.
Yeah.
Everyone involved in football, so we're the best in the world, hopefully. There's plenty to do still. There's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
But this is a really good tool, an educational tool for everyone to watch and get involved with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 42 now, and 21 years ago I was on the dole, having been kicked out of the professional game, you know. The dream was gone and all that. And I can look back about what effect it had on that period of my life, whether it did or didn't help or not help me become a professional footballer. I don't think it helped. I mean, I lived in fear for most of my professional football life. But now I'm 42 years of age, waived my anonymity, got the help required. I've got a 6-year-old boy about to turn 7, just started playing football in his first football team. At a football club who takes safeguarding at its core as a priority, champions it is culture. They use the FA and all the content to support that message regularly. So I feel comfortable with my boy James playing football at the club, and I feel like there's a very positive environment around that, and it's something that I still have fear around that, naturally, but actually the way that the game's moved and the way that the FA has supported grassroots football to be able to negate the challenges around our experiences and to make sure that they are greatly reduced, and now to be involved in football, my relationship with it, and to see the joy on my boy's face playing the beautiful game, it's inspiring in that environment for me to witness that. And that's a really good place to be for me, because for a long time I struggled with my relationship with the game.
Yes, so since breaking my anonymity and making the complaint and having a successful court case against the offender, I have re-engaged in football and been welcomed back into the club at Manchester City by the officials there, which has been really good and positive, and I've got a lot from it. And also what we've got, as being members of the FA panel, is really good. I love the game, watch it, go and watch local grassroots stuff as well as Premiership football. It's in your DNA, it's what you brought up on. So I'm enjoying my football again now. There's a lot as the years have gone by, thankfully. But still plenty to do in terms of safeguarding, and always will be. We just got to keep on it and squeeze the opportunities out for those people that have got those inclinations.
And I think if it had been around back in my day, I probably would not have been in that car, and he probably would not have been running that team because of the DBS check. So that would have been a massive change. If I think about the signs after the first assaults, there were certainly signs that would have been picked up on in my behaviour. So I would urge parents from the bottom of my heart that they need to go onto the FA website and do the free programme to learn how to help keep their child and other people's children, their community safe. I don't understand why someone would not do that. I don't know if you can add to that, mate.
No, spot on, I would do a job. Everyone involved in football to play the part, get involved. It's not an onerous task. If it was around in my day, our day, who knows? But I do suspect it has started a conversation, maybe. And that might have been enough to stop the predator doing what he did and carrying on for so long, decades. So just please do it.